I'm still swimming in the offense. Feels like something's really broken, but I don't need to fix it.
Fighting hordes of infested can be really overwhelming at times. So why not fight fire with fire? Today we are going to be taking a look at the maggot infested frame known as Nidus for this week's B.O.T.W builds of the week. So without further ado, strap in, grab some antibiotics, put them on standby, and let's get right into this video. Without further ado, this is Nidus. Hey, how's it going, sexy felines? My name is CJ or M.C.I.K. Welcome back to another Warframe video, and welcome back to B.O.T.W Builds of the Week, the show where I basically take a look at a weapon, Warframe, or Sentinel, whatever it may be, take a look at the build, show you guys the stats, show you guys my personal opinion on the weapon, Warframe, Kubra, whatever it may be, and then kind of just talk about it, test it out a little bit, show you guys the abilities if it is a Warframe, and then wrap it up. That's about it. So it took me a while, and I really wanted to do Nidus for a long time, but I've been really lazy, and I just haven't had the time to do this. I wanted to make sure it was in-depth, and I went over everything that I needed to. He is a bit more of a complex frame, so it can be a little bit more challenging than just talking about simple abilities. Nidus is probably one of the greatest synergy frames we have in-game at the moment, meaning his abilities work so well with each other, and he's definitely got his fair share of praise for that. So to start this off, I'll tell you guys how to get Nidus if you don't have him already. So you can get him from two locations. Of course, you can just buy him from the market for a good bit of platinum, but that will also come with a pre-installed Orokin reactor and a Warframe slot, so you won't have to worry about getting one of those opened up just for the new frame. But if you're not into spending platinum, there's always an alternative, so you can get the blueprint from doing the quest, the Glass Gambit. If you complete that, you'll get the blueprint for Nidus, and if you want the parts, they'll be obtained on Infested Salvage, which is a mission that will be on Eris, and you can get that on the Rotation C, all of his parts. It's really not that hard to farm him, and especially for how good he is. He's a really good frame. I think he works almost too well with himself. He really does shine in late endurance runs. He's alright to bring into a capture or an exterminate, but you can see his true colors and how he really shines on survivals or defense missions, mainly survival. He is amazing at survival missions. This frame is unique in its own sense. It has a stack counter, which basically means you have to build the counter up. The more you do that, the better he will be, and the stronger his abilities will be. But also, his passive is great, and it will involve that counter. So keep that in mind. We'll talk about more of that in a little bit. As for building him, once you get all the parts, the most you'll probably need is like 2,000 Kuva and maybe 3 neural sensors. The rest of the stuff is pretty easy to come by. At rank 30, this frame has a whopping 450 health, which is a good bit in my opinion, and also 300 armor, or really 450 at rank 30, which is really good. He can take a handful of hits before he actually goes down. Not to mention his abilities will keep him alive a lot longer than most frames. His power pool at rank 30 will be 150, so it's not going to be that crazy big. It's not going to be like a casting frame, but if you put a primed flow in there, you'll have plenty of energy. For his aura polarity, it'll be a V, and he'll come with 2 polarities at base. You can form this if you want to later on, but it'll come with a V polarity and a D polarity. So you can put on overextended on the D polarity, and as for the V, you can put on some strength mods if you want to. Alright, so let's talk about his build, his mutation stacks, and also his abilities. So, what is this mutation counter? The way you get mutation stacks is by actually using his first and fourth ability, and those will stack up through the counter on the bottom right of your screen. When you're using Nidus, you'll have this little mutation counter, and that will be filled up the more you use his first and fourth ability. So that mutation counter is used for a couple different things for Nidus, so keep that in mind. It is very important to keep that pretty high up and always filled up. You'll be able to use his third and fourth ability using the counter instead of actual energy, so make sure you keep that in mind. You don't actually consume energy when you're using his fourth or third ability, and also his passive works hand in hand with his counter. So the cool thing about his passive is if Nidus dies in battle, he will actually not die. He will be resurrected instantly. Instead of dying, he will be taking 15 of those stacks away from the mutation counter. So he's basically almost invincible. If you have a bunch of stacks on the mutation counter, they will just keep taking away from that and just let him keep on going. Cheat death, basically. Before we go into the abilities, I'll get into the build, and I'll tell you guys what is really good for when building Nidus. Strength is a very important key in building Nidus. I think it's good to have a good bit of strength and also duration. Now, in my opinion, range is the absolute most important in Nidus. Range is going to be super effective because you'll be able to affect more enemies and get more ticks for your mutation counter. As for efficiency, not that important. You can go for a low efficiency on any build that you do. It's up to you, really. I'll explain why I have such a low efficiency in a little bit, and I'll show you guys the build in just a second. But yeah, overall, I'd say build for a lot of range. Strength is also second important, and then the third important is duration. You want your abilities to last a good while. That way you don't have to use more of your stacks to recast your fourth and third abilities, if that makes any sense. So here's the build right here. This is the one I have for Nidus and I currently use. I go for Still Charge just because it fits the aura polarity and I don't feel like changing that, to be honest. We have Blind Rage, Intensify, and these are going to be our strength mods. This is going to give us 166% strength, which is going to be plenty. Now this will take the efficiency down a little bit, but thankfully the first ability actually gives back energy when you use it and you actually hit enemies. It'll give back energy to you when using it. So it's alright to have a low efficiency as long as you have something like, I don't know, primed flow or just flow on here. Next off, we have Vitality and Rage. These are going to be really useful for Nidus because it's going to give him 1050 health overall, which is fantastic. And the Rage is also going to help him with energy if he takes damage, which he will take damage because the thing about Nidus is if he has no shields, he only has health. And he will regen health when he takes damage. But the cool thing is this: whenever you take damage, like lethal damage, he will get energy. So it's kind of like in Naros. Any damage you take will be lethal damage. So this means every time you take damage, you're going to give your boy Nidus some energy. So this one works really well on Nidus. So if you have Rage, I recommend you guys put it on the build. Next off, we have Stretch and Overextended for our range mods. These are going to give us the 235% range we need. We don't need to add the last bit of range from Cunning Drift, just because this is plenty of range. This is far enough, and it spreads to a pretty damn big wide area. Overextended will take the strength down, but you know, still we have Blind Rage and Intensify. That's plenty of strength there, to be honest. Last but not least, we have Primed Flow for our energy. We're just gonna give us a 350 energy pool, which is plenty of energy, and we have Primed Continuity, which is gonna give us the 155% duration for all of our abilities. So it will work very well and keep our abilities going and also keeping us surviving longer without having to use more stacks. So I think duration is pretty damn important. And yeah, that is the build. So now I'm going to show you guys the abilities working hand in hand with this build that I just showed you. Go over all the abilities really quickly and try to explain them in the best way possible. Alright, so Nidus' first ability is Virulence, which is probably the most important ability out of all of them. It's going to be the main source of getting ticks for your mutation gauge. So when you use this first ability, it will deal damage, it will add ticks to the gauge or the counter on the right hand of your screen, whatever you want to call it. And if you have a lot of strength on this, it will actually give you an energy refund every single time you hit an enemy. So it'll basically give you more energy every time you hit enemies, which is great. Also, this damage from this Virulence does also scale with the mutation gauge. So the more mutation stacks you have on the gauge, the more damage Virulence will do. So keep that in mind. So his second ability is going to be Larva, which is going to be his main source of crowd control in my opinion. His second ability, once you cast it, will grab nearby enemies, and this is why, by the way, I said range is great on this frame, because the Larva is going to grab all the enemies from the area and suck them into one spot, and from there you can use your first ability to basically kind of keep them all controlled and use Virulence on all of the enemies in that small little Larva stack. Basically, this will increase your stack a lot faster, your gauge a lot faster, and give you more stacks. Not to mention, it will be amazing crowd control, and your teammates will definitely praise you for that. It runs on duration, so once again, it's good to have duration on this build, and of course, range. Alright, Nidus' third ability is Parasitic Link. It will cost 1 stack to use this ability, so keep that in mind. Make sure you guys always have a good bit of stacks on your gauge. So when casting Parasitic Link, you can cast it on a teammate, an ally, or you can cast it on an enemy. So if you cast it on an enemy, basically what it will do is it will take the majority of damage dealt onto you and deal it onto the enemy, basically creating a link between you and the enemy. Not to mention the enemy will be held in this track, so it will not be able to move. It'll just stay there and not do anything. And yeah, basically it works kind of like a punching bag. It'll take most of the blows for you. If you cast it on a teammate, however, you and your teammate will get an increase in damage. So I think overall a pretty solid ability. Alright, so Ravenous is going to be Nidus' fourth ability. This will cost 3 mutation stacks, so keep that in mind. Once again, it will not cost any energy, just 3 mutation stacks. And what this does is it creates a big, massive area of just infested garbage, and I say that in the greatest way possible. It's going to lay down a field of infested, I don't know, grass. This grass will be healing you and your teammates, so it'll keep you guys alive a lot longer, and also it'll spawn in some maggots, and those maggots will deal damage to enemies and also add to your gauge, your mutation gauge, to give more stacks. So all in all, really good ability. It does go on duration, so make sure you guys have a good bit of duration on there, that way you don't have to cast it again and use more of your stacks. And also it will work on range, so the bigger the range, the wider spread of infested garbage you can throw on the battlefield. So all in all, a great build. All in all these abilities work really well with each other in keeping him alive and also your teammates as well. Nidus is a damn solid frame, and if you guys do not have him, I recommend you guys get him. He's definitely worth the time, the grind, or the platinum. Anyway, that's about it for this B.O.T.W. Thank you guys for watching the video. Feel free to leave a comment down below of what video we may do next, whether it be a B.O.T.W. on a weapon, Warframe, or whatnot, and I will get to it as soon as possible. Thank you for watching. My name is M.C.I.K, and I will see all of you, your beautiful faces, in the next video. Have a great day. Stay sexy, stay cool, and peace out.